Let's start with a reality that nobody in power seems willing to say out loud. It has never been more expensive to just exist in America. If you feel like you are doing everything right, working the hours, cutting the expenses, playing by the rules, and you are still barely keeping your head above water, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not crazy, and you are not failing. The system is, we have entered a brand new economic era. It is not just inflation, and it is not just a temporary dip in the business cycle. It is a full-blown affordability crisis. We are living through a time where the basic foundational elements of a dignified life, a place to live, healthy food, healthcare, and education, have been transformed into high-ticket luxury items. The American dream used to be about upward mobility. Today, for millions of people, the American dream has been downgraded to basic survival. My name is Mervin. In our last discussion, we broke down the psychology of the consumer trap, how the economy manufactures fake needs to keep you on a hedonic treadmill, buying things you don't need with money you don't have. But today, we need to talk about a much heavier problem, because right now, people aren't struggling to buy luxury goods or status symbols. They are struggling to buy groceries. They are struggling to pay rent. The squeeze is real, the pressure is structural, and the traditional financial advice of just work harder is no longer working. Over the next few minutes, we are going to look directly into the gears of this crisis. We will decode the actual causes of the Great American Squeeze, examine the brutal downstream effects on our mental health and communities, and most importantly, map out a strategic, defensive blueprint to build a high-comfort, low-cost sanctuary right in the middle of an economic storm. To understand why your paycheck vanishes faster than it used to, we have to look past the surface-level political talking points. The current affordability crisis is driven by three massive structural shifts that have fundamentally altered the cost of being alive. The first driver is housing financialization. For generations, a home was primarily a place to live. It was a shelter, a community anchor, and a slow, steady way for a family to build modest wealth. But over the last decade, and accelerating massively in recent years, global Wall Street private equity firms realized something dangerous. People will pay almost anything to avoid being homeless. Massive institutional investors flooded the residential real estate market, buying up thousands of entry-level single-family homes and apartment complexes with cash. They didn't buy them to live in them. They bought them to turn them into permanent rental income streams for wealthy shareholders. When corporations compete with first-time homebuyers, the corporations win. This has artificially choked housing supply, driven home prices to catastrophic highs, and sent rent skyrocketing past the reach of average wages. Housing is no longer just real estate. It has been financialized into an aggressive asset class, leaving ordinary people paying half their income just to keep a roof over their heads. The second driver is corporate consolidation and greedflation. We are told we live in a highly competitive free market, but look closer at the things you buy every day. Whether you are walking down the aisle for groceries, buying household cleaning products, or paying for internet access, a tiny handful of massive conglomerates owns almost every brand you see. When a market is consolidated into a near monopoly, true competition dies. During the supply chain disruptions of the early 2020s, prices naturally rose due to scarcity. But as supply chains normalized and wholesale costs fell, retail prices stayed high. Why? Because these mega corporations realized that consumers had grown used to paying more. They used inflation as an ideological smokescreen to pad their profit margins to record-breaking highs. When three companies control the majority of the food supply, they don't have to lower prices to compete with each other. They can simply hold the line, and you have no choice but to pay the premium because you have to eat. The third driver is the wage productivity decoupling. This is the structural trap underlying everything else. If prices go up by 40% over a decade, but wages also go up by 40%, the net effect is zero. But that is not what happened. Since the late 1970s, economic productivity, the sheer amount of output workers produce per hour, has risen steadily. Yet middle-class wages have remained almost completely flat when adjusted for inflation. The wealth generated by your increased productivity did not go into your paycheck. It was funneled upward into executive compensation and corporate stock buybacks. This means American workers are literally producing more value than ever before in history, while their purchasing power has actively diminished. You are running faster and faster just to buy a fraction of what your parents could afford with a single income. When macroeconomics breaks down, human beings fracture. The downstream effects of this affordability crisis are not just lines on a government chart. They are deeply etched into the daily lived experience of the modern workforce. The first major effect is chronic low-level financial trauma. When you live in a state of permanent financial precarity, your nervous system never fully shuts down. If a single unexpected car repair, a sudden dental bill, or a minor rent increase can completely derail your entire life, your body exists in a constant fight-or-flight state. This financial cortisol bath ruins sleep, degrades physical health, and erodes mental clarity. We aren't designed to live under the constant ambient threat of economic ruin. It changes how we think, how we interact with our families, and how we view the future. Pessimism becomes a survival mechanism because planning ahead feels like an exercise in disappointment. The second effect is the destruction of community and third places. To survive the squeeze, people are taking on second jobs, driving rideshare gigs late into the night, and working unpredictable shift work. When every waking hour is monetized just to cover fixed costs, you have zero time left for anything else. We are seeing the rapid collapse of third places, those physical locations that are neither work nor home, where people gather to socialize, build community, and rest without the obligation to spend money. Churches, community centers, local parks, and casual clubs are thinning out because people are simply too exhausted or too broke to show up. The result is a hyper-isolated society where everyone is working in parallel silos, lonely, disconnected, and deeply stressed. The third effect is a lifestyle regressive downsizing. This is the subtle, painful process of watching your quality of life systematically erode. It starts with cutting out small luxuries like dining out or streaming services. Then it moves into compromising on essentials, buying lower quality, highly processed food because fresh produce is too expensive, delaying necessary medical checkups, driving on bald tires because a new set isn't in the budget. This isn't the deliberate, joyful minimalism we discussed in our last video. This is forced, involuntary deprivation. It is a slow, steady shrinking of a person's world until life is reduced to nothing but work and bills. So, how do we respond to a rigged macroeconomic environment? If you wait for systemic political changes or corporate benevolence to fix this crisis, you will be waiting a very long time. True empowerment doesn't come from wishing the world was different. It comes from taking radical, immediate control of your microenvironment. We need to engage in what I call tactical de-escalation. If the system is designed to squeeze you, you must systematically shrink your exposure to that system. Here is your defensive blueprint to protect your finances and your sanity. Step 1 is the definancialization of shelter. Housing is the single largest expense dragging people down. If you are trapped in a cycle of paying 50% of your take-home pay to a corporate landlord, you cannot build momentum. Breaking this trap requires radical creativity. It might mean geographic arbitrage, deliberately relocating to a lower-cost tier city or state, even if it means a slight shift in career. It might mean opting out of the traditional apartment market entirely through house sharing, co-living arrangements, or intergenerational housing. Living with family or trusted friends used to be seen as a sign of financial struggle. In the modern economy, it is a highly strategic, high-leverage move. By pooling resources and slashing housing costs to 30% or less of your income, you deny corporate landlords the ability to bleed your wealth dry. Step 2 is radical dietary autonomy. The industrial food system is optimized to maximize corporate profits while delivering lower nutritional value at higher prices. To fight back, you have to exit the convenience food loop. This means building a lifestyle centered around whole, single-ingredient foods bought in bulk: grains, beans, legumes, frozen vegetables, and basic proteins. It means shifting your kitchen from a place of simple assembly to a place of production. Learning the basic, timeless skills of scratch cooking, baking bread, and meal prepping isn't just a quirky hobby anymore. It is a vital act of economic self-defense. When you stop paying for corporate packaging, marketing, and processing, your grocery bill plummets and your physical health improves. You take your money out of the corporate food complex and invest it back into your own well-being. Step 3 is the construction of an ultra-low overhead lifestyle. Take a hard, analytical look at your fixed monthly commitments. The modern digital economy loves the subscription model because it creates a quiet, invisible drain on your capital. Audit your life and aggressively decouple your happiness from recurring costs. Swap the expensive commercial gym membership for a basic set of kettlebells and a running route in a local park. Switch your cell phone provider to a low-cost prepaid carrier that runs on the exact same towers as the major networks but charges a fraction of the price. Learn to repair, maintain, and care for the things you already own instead of treating everything as disposable. Every single recurring bill you eliminate lowers your financial baseline, reducing the amount of income you need to survive and instantly buying back your freedom. Let's bring this back to the core philosophy of frugal optimism. The current economic system wants you to believe that the only solution to this affordability crisis is to work more hours, climb higher up the corporate ladder, and chase a larger paycheck. They want you to think that financial safety is a number in a bank account that requires millions of dollars to achieve. But that is the ultimate illusion. If you keep your lifestyle tied to the standard American consumer baseline, any increase in your income will simply be swallowed up by rising costs, corporate greedflation, and lifestyle creep. You will stay trapped on the treadmill, terrified of the next economic shift. True wealth is not about how much you make. It is about how little you need to live an extraordinarily comfortable, beautiful life. When you deliberately cap your desires, when you build a high-comfort, low-cost sanctuary that requires very little money to maintain, you completely change the dynamic. You shift the power dynamic away from the system and back into your own hands. You stop being a vulnerable target for corporate price gouging because you don't buy their products. You stop being at the complete mercy of a stressful job because your monthly survival cost is so low that you can afford to walk away if you need to. The Great American Squeeze is a structural reality, but your participation in it is highly negotiable. You do not have to let an unstable, predatory economy dictate your internal peace. Build your defenses, reclaim your autonomy, protect your sanctuary. Thank you for listening. My name is Mervin, and I will see you in the next deep dive.